Hi everybody, welcome back to the Mermaids Cave. I'm Leslie Levison and we are on a dazzling Crazy Quilt adventure. Today we're going to be doing a herringbone stitch, a palestrina knot, a chevron stitch, and we're going to be doing Shisha mirrors with pearl cotton and with silk ribbon. So thread your needles and let's get started. Hello everybody, today we are going to be working on herringbone stitch. The first stitch we're going to do is herringbone, and I'm going to show you first on my felt piece and then we'll go to the Crazy Quilt block. I'm going to start with a number 5 pearl cotton, in a number 3 needle. And you come up just below where my line here represents my seam line on my Crazy Quilt, of course. And I'm going to go over across. It's like an elongated cross stitch. I'm going to take a little back stitch, pull it through, cross over, take another little back stitch below your seam line, back stitch again over here, and you're just going to continue along until you've covered your whole seam. Okay, so that's a very simple stitch, and it lends itself to being decorated and embellished quite a lot. Okay, so you would work that across. And then, as you can see, we've got long floats here of the threads. So this was an idea suggested to me by Diane Schneck, and it works beautifully to hold down your long floats. You come back with a different color thread if you'd like. I'm going to use some floss here in green, and you make a little X over, well, you make a little cross over your X, let's say. So you have like that. And it adds an element of decoration, and it also helps hold the stitch in place. So again, I'm just making a little horizontal stitch and then a little vertical stitch, like so. And that's your herringbone stitch. Here are some examples. This one has a very large cross over the X's and then beads added on the points. This one has a fly stitch and French knots added. And then this one, I like this one very much. It's very pretty. It's got just straight stitches forming a fan in between the big V's, and then beads with tiny sequins at the edges. So that's our first stitch for today. Our next stitch is going to be the chevron stitch. And that's this stitch here. And we're going to be adding some sequins to that. We're going to start to glitz it up a little bit. So for the chevron stitch, knot my thread. It's similar to the herringbone, but it has an extra step in it. So I'm going to take my little back stitch, just like I did for the herringbone, and then come to the other side of that stitch and take another back stitch, like so. And it forms a little platform. Oops, that has to go under there, like that. Okay. So again, I take one back stitch, and a second back stitch, and then go up here. and so on. Okay, nice stitch. This is where I've done it one on top of another, so you could create diamonds, you could create like a honeycomb pattern. So I'm going to just end this one off with these threads, get all these threads out of here. And to do our sequins, we're going to use a beading needle and a beading thread, the Nymo size D thread. I'm using a number 10 beading needle, very skinny little needle. And I've got some beads. Got some beads and sequins here. Sequins, there are two types of sequins. There's a cupped sequin, which is what this is. It has a shape to it. It's cupped like a little cup. Whoops. And then you'll also see flat sequins. Today you can buy sequins in just about every shape. I even have mermaid sequins at home. But for now, we're just going to stick to traditional sequins. Okay. So here I'm going to come up. I'm coming up like halfway the width of the sequin so that when I put it on, it just sits on top of the chevron. And then I'm going to put on a bead. So I have one bead on here. I'm going to go back through just the sequin, not the bead, because the bead is what anchors the sequin on. Okay, so again, I'm going to come up right there. And you can put you can actually put the sequin on with the cup side up or the cup side down. I like to make a grape cluster using purple sequins, and I'll put them cup size down so that it gives a rounded effect to look like grapes. So I'm just going to go back down, and again I'm only going through the sequin, not the bead, so that holds that on. Okay, so now let's take a look at what that looks like on a block. So these are flower shaped sequins with little beads on them. And again, it's a very pretty effect. You can go back and add more into the middle of the stitch, the chevron stitch. So that's 2 stitches for today. And now we're going to add some sequins. So I'm going to just end this one off with these threads, get all these threads out of here. Okay, for our next stitch, we're going to do the palestrina knot. And I'm just going to thread up some pearl cotton, number 5 pearl cotton here. And I come up on one side of my seam, or in this case my line, and I'm going to cross over and just make a stitch coming straight down, like so. And this will make what I call a little bridge stitch. Okay. Then I'm going to bring my needle through that stitch from the top down on one side, and then swing around and bring it through on the other side. Bring it underneath that bridge stitch. Okay. And the needle goes over the thread rather. And it makes like a little knot. Now, you don't want to pull it too tight. You want to just leave it nice and loose so it looks like a crochet stitch. Again, I'm going to make a little bridge stitch by just taking a straight stitch there and then come down on one side. Bring my thread through and then go down on the other side. I'm just gonna adjust the camera a little bit so that I'm closer. Okay, again, I'm taking a little straight stitch here to make my bridge. Let's get you in the middle of the camera there. So I have my bridge, and then under one side, pull to one side, and then go under the bridge on the other side. When I say the other side, I mean just to the other side of that first stitch, and pull it gently. And I'm just going to continue to do a few so you can watch. And this is a stitch that took me several times of doing it to own it. You know, sometimes you just own a stitch, your fingers just know where to go. Other things you have to like watch it a couple of times or do it, practice it several times before you really get it. And this stitch came from Jackie Enthoven's little book called Stitches with Variations. It's like a little pocket-sized book. Another one that's probably out of print, but again, if you ever should come across it, by all means, do take a look at it. Okay, I'll do one more. And there you go, Palestrina knot. To replicate a seam line on my Crazy Quilt, because I think it's just clearer for you to see it when it's on the felt or on the white. So I'm going to start again on one side of my seam. I'm going to come above my seam and take a little stitch down toward me. Or on the camera, it's probably going the other way. It's another thing I haven't figured out yet. Take it and pull. Not tight, just pull it so that it forms, like it's going to look like a wishbone. Okay. Then come below the seam and take another little stitch. I'm not coming, when I take this little stitch here, I'm not coming all the way back to the seam, which is what forms this lovely Y shape here, or wishbone shape. And you can work this very close together. You can work it farther apart. That's up to you. You can always change up the look of your stitching by changing up how far apart or close together it is, or how, you know, what kind of thread you use, whether you use a fine thread or a heavier thread. It's just an infinite number of things you can do with a Crazy Quilt, which is why I like it so much. As I've said before, there are no mistakes, there are only creative flaws. Okay, so we've done, this is a Creighton stitch. Now that you know how to do that, we're going to do Shisha mirrors. Okay, I'm going to do this here so that you can see it very clearly. These are the steps. The first step is we make a plain grid. Then I did this in a second color so you could see. Then we make another grid over the first grid so that you end up with, if you're a quilter, you'll recognize this. It's similar to an Ohio star. And then we're going to work a Creighton stitch around it. Okay. And then after we get that done, then I'm going to show you how to do this with a silk ribbon so that you don't waste any of your silk ribbon on the back, that it's all on the front. Okay. So here's my Shisha mirror. Now, as I said, if you can't get a hold of Shisha or little mirrors at your craft store, you can use a coin. If you travel a lot, pre-Euro days, and you have foreign coins, this is a great way to showcase them. You could put them in a memory quilt. So let me just thread up my needle. Okay, needle is threaded. So if you feel better by gluing this down, you know, with a little bit of tacky glue, that's fine. I just hold on with my thumb. I'm going to go across the mirror, not in the center. So if you think of it like halfway between, well, what's under here? Sequins. Take two. Okay, if you think of it as halfway between the center of the mirror and the edge, that's where I want your stitch to be. So that's the first one. Now I'm going to go around to the other side. And make another vertical stitch. Okay, so that's the beginning of it. Now I'm going to make 2 perpendicular stitches. This is where having paid attention in 8th grade math comes in handy, you know. See, now I came up here. I think that's a little too close to the edge, so I'm going to bring it down like maybe just 1/8 of an inch, so that when I go across, it really does hold it on. That's better. And what I really need to do is clean off my table so I don't keep catching things in my thread. Does anybody else have that issue of having like just too much stuff on your table? Okay, so here is my, and you can see it's not perfect. It'll hold on though. That's what we want to do. Now we're going to just turn it and do the same thing. Again, we're going to make our grid going across the first grid. So, like I said, it looks a little bit like an Ohio Star patch. So again, I have my original grid, then I have my secondary grid, and now we're going to work a Creighton stitch into that grid. So, I'm going to come up along the edge of the mirror, and think of the edge of the mirror as your seam line, just like we did on the Creighton stitch. So I'm going to start from the center of the grid and go under whatever threads happen to be there. Pull my thread over gently. Don't pull it too tight. You don't want to pull the grid off of the mirror. Now I'm going to do my stitch going toward the seam. Again, my needle is over my thread and pull it gently. Come down from the center of the grid, over my thread, gently pull it. And you just keep going back and forth like that, just like we did on the Creighton stitch. But instead of sewing over a seam line, it's the edge of the mirror that we're going back and forth on. Okay. Oops. The first time I ever saw Shisha was at the Englishtown auction in Englishtown, New Jersey. I think it's still going on. It's a great auction. And I used to go there. My father was a collector, and so he would pile up the kids, and we'd all go to Englishtown auction for the afternoon, or for the morning. Actually, it opened in the morning, and it was the late '60s, and there was this girl walking down one of the aisles, and she had on a cotton Indian shirt that was completely covered in Shisha, and it was just sparkling in the sun, and I was like, oh, I want to do that, you know. And I started experimenting with it. There was a friend of mine who was doing it, so after many years, I finally figured out how to do it correctly, and it's just a really nice addition to your quilt. It's unusual, and like I said, you can use it, you can do coins with it, you know, you can. So you just keep working around and around and around, and if you should run out of thread in the middle of going around it, don't worry, just take your needle down, put a new thread on, come up where you left off, you'll be fine. Okay, now you see all these little spikes here, that leads to more embellishment, right? Of course. So here on this one, I added little beads. You can see on the edge there. And the reason it looks like I have two different colors in here is because I had done the sample like that, which you could purposely do to give that effect. It's very pretty. So now we're going to do this with silk ribbon. Okay. So we're going to make that grid just like we did before, and then we're going to put a circle of running stitches around the mirror like this. The reason we're going to do it this way is so that we don't waste the silk ribbon coming to the back of the fabric. As you can see, I already started this one, so I'm going to thread up my silk ribbon again. This is I believe this is a 4mm. Let's see. 4mm. Yes, this is a 4mm ribbon. It's from River Silks. And as I may have mentioned this before, there's a really good needlework shop in Rocky Hill, Connecticut called Thistle Needleworks, which carries everything you could use for any kind of needlework, you know, canvas work, crewel work, any kind of embroidery, gold work. And she does carry a selection of silk ribbon, and she does do mail orders. So again, that's Thistle like the plant, Thistle Needleworks in Rocky Hill, Connecticut. So the same way we did the Shisha mirror with the pearl cotton, I'm going to start by coming up through the center of the mirror, right under the grid. But instead of going into the fabric, I'm only going to be going into that little stitch there. And then up again. And you can do 2 stitches in each running stitch. So you get 2 silk ribbon stitches into each running stitch. Okay. I'm trying really hard to keep this in the right camera angle. Oh. Again, I'm just going through that little stitch. I'm not going through the fabric. Yep, my thread came out. Okay, so that's how we do that. And as usual, we're going to end off with a little slideshow of quilts. And for next week, we're going to be adding, each week we'll be using what we already have, but we'll also be adding some other things. So we're going to be adding 1/16 inch flat ribbon, which is made by Krynic. This you might be able to find in more places than just your local fabulous thread shop. I don't know if the big box stores carry it. They might. It's Kreinik, Kreinik, and it's the 1/16 inch flat ribbon. We're going to be using that to make dragonflies. When I taught my class every week, the name of the class was Dragonflies and Belly Dancers. And because we did dragonflies and we did beaded fringe for belly dancing. So we will get to all that. And enjoy the slideshow. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. My goal in this is to be able to you'll learn to edit it myself so I can put up videos more often, but also to be able to go and visit other embroiderers who who have a specialty that they do that I would really like to share with you. So again, please like and subscribe. Have a lovely week and happy stitching. Bye bye now from the Mermaids Cave.